Hi, I'm Jonathan Block. In this video, I'll be doing Mellotron sound-on-sound looping using the Boss RE-202 Space Echo. The signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini. Its master mono analog output goes into a Boss volume pedal on the floor. The output from the volume pedal goes into a Boss GT1000core multi-effects. The stereo output from the GT1000core goes into the Boss RE-202 Space Echo. Again, I will only be using this for sound-on-sound looping, not for delay. In order to use it for sound-on-sound looping, you need to get it into what's called long delay mode. You can find the instructions for that on page 15 of the online manual. I also have a little information below in the description on how to do that, as well as a link to a video where I go way in depth about how to put this into long delay mode and then how to do sound-on-sound looping with the Mellotron. So I'm going to be using just M400 sounds from the Mellotron. This is not the old M400. This is a modern digital Mellotron. The M400 was introduced in the early 70s and was meant to be way more portable and transportable for live use. It was still heavy as heck, and the tapes were still problematic. There's a lot of great, cool sounds on the M400. I'm going to be splitting it up. So I'm only going to do the first half of sounds, really about, I think, 10 or 11 sounds, strings and chorus, mainly. I'll be doing a little flute at the end, but getting ahead of myself. Typically, I use the GT1000core a bit and I add effects to the sounds as I'm looping it. But I've noticed with strings and with choir, it really just gets kind of very, very muddy very quickly. So I will use some effects, but not nearly as much as I usually do. It's really just going to be the clean, clean Mellotron sounds onto the Space Echo as the looper. So I'll demonstrate all this. Let me start first with just the clean sounds. Now, when I say clean sounds, it's whatever sound is in the Mellotron. The Mellotron, obviously, the tapes. And now samples in here are from the master tapes, 8 seconds long. Whatever the player was doing for that particular note, that's what you get. So there's definitely idiosyncrasies across the keyboard and across the notes with every Mellotron sound. Now, even when I'm not engaging any individual effects on the GT1000core, I do have some compression going and some plate reverb. So you'll hear that. Let me start with all the Mellotron clean sounds. Let me go as quick as I can so we don't spend too much time on this. So first we have 3 violins. Actually, 3 violins B. It's a bit more bassy and vintagey sounding than the Mark II, which is a little more brighter and present. Then we've got 16 violins. That's a lot of layered violins. Violin solo. So you can hear that reverb. Viola. Then we've got cello. Cello B, I'm not going to use this. It's just a bassier sounding cello. Then we move into the choir. So the first one is an 8-voice choir. This is just a combination of the male and female voices. Then we get the 4-voice female choir. Again, you can hear that reverb. So this is 4 male voices. And then we have boys choir. Mixed custom choir, which I think is a combination of everything. Actually, some of the voices in there sound different. And finally, bass flute, but I'm going to use this as a solo instrument over some part of this. And then we'll save the rest of the woodwinds and the few other sounds, the organs, etc., for a future video. So let me just demonstrate the effects that I have available here to use. I have a standard setup, if you've watched any of the Mellotron videos, with the GT1000core. I use a little bit of rotary available. I have a little bit of phaser and then a delay. And again, there's compression and reverb going already. So clean sound, I'll just use the violins. Rotary. All right, clean. I keep saying clean. I should just say no effects. Even though that's not entirely accurate either. All right, so clean and then the phaser. All right, and then clean and the delay. Just turn them all on. I will not be using all of them at once. So there you go with the sounds and the effects that are available. Let me do a little just kind of mini loop here. What I think I'm going to do is actually kind of have this in two parts. I'll start with the strings, and then since the cello's at the end, maybe I'll do a little cello over that. And then we'll move into the choirs. Let me actually do just a test loop here so you can see, or rather see and hear what I'm doing here. The setup that I have on the Space Echo is very standard for myself. A couple of points here. When you are getting it into long delay mode, I suggest, and you'll understand this when you watch my video or read the manual, put it in head 1 and get 2 seconds of delay. It's much easier because you can only get the long delay by tapping. Once you're in long delay mode, you have to tap. It's really hard to tap a 6-second delay. But I learned it's easy to tap a 2-second delay, and once you have that, you just move it to head 3, and then it's a 6-second delay. Once you have the knobs the way you want, save it into one of the preset slots, and you never need to worry about it again. I have the intensity knob, which is the repeats, which controls the length of the loop and the decay. I have that set to about 1:30, 2 o'clock. That's where you get the least amount of degradation of the sound and a fade out of the volume over time. However, you can't not have that. This is not a kind of stock looper where what you put in is what you're going to get out. So if you're looking for that kind of looping, this is not it. It has very idiosyncrasies to the sound and to the way that it actually works, and I actually find that cool. I like the sound that it gets. But what I do is about 1:30, and then when I need the sound to go down, I just move it to noon, and you'll hear that the degradation gets quicker and that the volume of the sound goes down. So let me just do a quick kind of sample loop here with some voice choir sounds, no effects other than the compression and the reverb that's already here. Let me just put a couple more voices on here. Finally, some of the male. And then you can disengage the Space Echo. The looping, the degradation will continue to go in the background, and then you can just do a lead over it. Let me just put some cello over this. Can turn the effects on. And then I can just move this to noon. It'll start to kind of fade out on each successive pass. And you just keep going down. Now there's also echo volume here, which can essentially do the same thing. So you can just kind of lower the volume and just have it fade out. So there's multiple ways to control that fade out. And again, when I say control, it's fairly limited. So I put it all the way down, so we stopped here. Let me just reposition the knobs, and let's just get into a jam. So I'll let that fade out. As you could hear, the sound gets really, really dense quickly, and I added some effects on just the violin sound, and it just immediately kind of made it even more dense, which is why I just used a few effects, and that was it. I did forget to mention, I also have a JHS pedal here. This is just to switch between inputs, so if I want to do two instruments at once, like use the bass, I have an extra output, I have an extra input here, but this is just set for the Mellotron anyways. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.